IVM.
Hey there, friend. If you're anything like me, then you have no clue what a mutual fund is, and your life might be subject to market risks too. So that's why you should probably listen to Paisa Vaisa by Anupam Gupta, who'll answer all your questions about mutual funds, financial planning, banking, all that money stuff. You know. Check out new episodes every week on the IVM podcast app and anywhere else you listen to podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Geek Podcast. This week we are discussing a show of some great import in our world. Is that fair to say?
Wow, that's ingenious.
Yeah, but it's a show that's been making a lot of noise on the internets and in the circles of people who talk about such stuff. A show called Russian Doll,
yes,
which looked really great, so we dove straight into it because we felt like it's a bit of a departure from what we typically do. Or actually not a departure from what we typically do, but what we've been doing off late. We've been talking a lot of superheroes and sci-fi, and
really?
This is
Have
something. Yeah, isn't that like our thing?
Okay.
Come on, man.
I thought we did we did a lot of retrospective episodes in the last couple of months, right? Where we've been looking back.
Superheroes, innit?
Yeah, I mean, we also spoke about Christopher Nolan. We spoke about DreamWorks Animation. We spoke about the stuff. Pierce Brosnan's James Bond.
Superhero.
Well, yes, from one perspective, you may consider that. And Pierce Brosnan is a superhero.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh, that's who I meant. Were you talking about James Bond?
Yeah. So Dinkar, Janam, hi.
Yes. Hi, Tejas.
How are you?
I am great. You asked me this last week.
You're still somehow you sound exactly the same. No, so we have decided that this week we're going to talk about Russian Doll.
But all in good time, because first I want to discuss some very important mail that's
exactly,
coming.
Which is what I was going to get to.
Which email is this? The long one or the longer one?
This is the medium one, which comes from a friend of the show called Sudeep Ghosh.
Okay.
Note that I say friend of the show. The subject line is The Dinkar Hate Chronicles Part 2. And I opened this email, dreading what would be inside. But the first line is, subject line was just clickbait. Dinkar, you redeemed yourself, at least with me. Loved the DreamWorks episode today. You were really insightful, especially the one with the central characters being the outcast was brilliant. I'm sure you're not the first one to point that out, but suddenly I saw a connection with a studio that was predominantly just work for me. I think you should talk more about animated content. I know Geek Fruit has done a lot already, but Dinkar especially is great with this, and even Bollywood. I think he stands out. I think he stands out from the rest of Geek Fruit with respect to this stuff. P.S. Stop stealing my best friends.
Good save, Sudeep. Good save. No.
He's referencing the fact that Jishnu is my best friend, and he feels like Jishnu should be his best friend. So clearly we've set up some sort of best friend triangle between the three of us.
You guys do that.
I'm on board for this. What I propose, Sudeep, if you're listening, what we should be doing is icing Jishnu out of this. Sudeep and I are best friends now.
Jana and I have to start our own damn podcast with the three of you guys.
Maybe you should have a podcast where you just discuss these developments.
A meta podcast.
That's what Sudeep has to say about our episode last week. It was an interesting episode.
I did like it.
It sparked some feelings. Didn't it cause you to reflect a bit about what we were talking about? I still don't. I can't quite put my finger on how these movies are a part of our lives, but also don't really impact us.
I do. Man, I love animation so much that I will literally watch anything. In fact, I'm watching some good stuff right now, which is DreamWorks, The Tales of Arcadia. I started rewatching that. I've started watching The Dragon Prince on Netflix. It's really good. But yeah, man. And so even if DreamWorks makes a bad film, I'll still watch it. Mm-hmm. But, I think the thing about animation is you have to appreciate the effort that goes into it, man. There's so many people who are just, literally etching away at, creating something. And, sometimes it's a long, arduous process, man. Animated movies take 3-4 years to kind of make and stuff. And so you gotta give them props, man. And they've made some good films, and I'm looking forward to how to treat it.
We're definitely giving them props.
Yeah.
Like we discussed in our episode, which you should listen to if you haven't.
Yeah.
They've done some really great work. We were trying to figure out why they don't get the same sort of heartfelt love that Pixar does.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of reasons. One is that their narratives tend to be a little fragmented. Two, they kind of always throw away bigger themes in favor of jokes and pop culture references.
But also Pixar has a really high, it's an incredibly high standard of films, So it's hard to there needs to be a space for DreamWorks, which is like a casual animated film for kids. Literally, you can just go enjoy it, just look at the funny colors and just like laugh, and it's good. And DreamWorks is great, man. Like they do hit home sometimes now and then. I remember How to Train Your Dragon is quite it's tragic. It's got a lot of emotion. So I like all of that
Kung
stuff.
Fu Panda as
Kung Fu
well.
Panda, yeah, it made me tear up.
Did you guys mention which was your favorite DreamWorks movie in the
I was just
episode?
going to ask you, what is your favorite DreamWorks movie?
So I'm just going through the list and I realized I haven't seen most of them, but I've seen all 3 Shreks. There are 3, right? I've seen all of them.
Yeah, there are 4 actually.
There are 4. Shrek Forever After was the 4th one.
Oh right, yeah, okay. I've seen those. I've seen Boss Baby, the first one.
There's only one.
The
as of
second
now.
one is in development.
And the spin-off
What did I see
TV
on
series is on
Netflix?
Netflix.
Yeah, right, that.
Oh no, that's not the movie. Oh, but I think the movie is also there. Yes,
It
you're right.
is. There is.
No, so DreamWorks has tied up with Netflix to do a ton of like content. There's a lot of like what in our era we would have called straight to DVD kind of.
And then you have
content.
those Minion movies, right? Despicable.
That's
Yes.
Illumination Entertainment.
Oh, okay.
That's a
but
different
they feel like
studio.
DreamWorks movies. I know what you mean.
I know.
Okay.
But give us your fave.
Yeah,
I
and
think
you too.
Shrek, because that's the only one. I haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, that's the best one. I would go and say that's probably.
You
my
haven't seen
favorite.
Kung Fu Panda.
Oh, that's
I've seen half of it, like really long back.
You saw
I didn't
Just the
finish.
panda parts.
Oh, I said Kung Fu.
Yeah, but it starts with him as a panda.
Okay. Alright.
Yeah, I've
It's
watched
a-
like half of that.
Janan's
And,
tastes continue to be eclectic as ever.
Yeah.
So, if for those
See, I
listeners
enjoy things like Russian Doll. That is something I'll binge and just watch. But
or Human Centipedes, both of them, 3 of them.
Yeah,
How many are there?
how?
I forget.
3.
My God.
So
I've yet to watch
heartwarming
this.
movies about pandas who just want to kick things and be kung fu masters.
Jack Black, no less.
But movies about human centipedes, thumbs
See,
up.
I don't like watching flowery things, rosy things, unicorns, rainbows. I don't like.
What? That's not what?
I mean, it's so like
It's
not
kung
happily
fu,
ever
it's all
after.
tough and
It's
stuff.
cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. So, and okay, I want to say Kung Fu Panda is probably my favorite DreamWorks film. Boom. There you go.
Okay, what about
Take
you?
it and go.
Yeah, possibly also Kung Fu
The
Panda.
first Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, I would say the first
It's got
Kung Fu
one
Panda.
amazing action. Like, it's got amazing action set pieces. There's one where the main villain has to escape from this prison, and he's like a tiger, and like he's played by Ian McShane, and it's like insane. He has to get through all these traps. Very like the Kung Fu Shawshank Redemption. He has to kind of escape. It's amazing, and it's like one of the best. I still remember. It still stands out as a very notable kind of action set piece, albeit in an animation film. But yeah, really good movie. And How to Train Your Dragon, you must watch.
Yeah.
How
In
many
fact,
parts are there? 3.
The third one's releasing
one
in
is
theaters
coming
like
out
this
now.
weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which you ought to watch, I suppose, and we'll get to it.
Alright.
What's your favorite the DreamWorks film before we get into the...
I said KFP.
great- Oh, KFP. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, it's a toss-up between KFP and a couple of others.
How to Train Your Dragon, maybe?
How to Train Your Dragon I like, but I'm not like, I wouldn't call it my
Oh,
favorite.
you should watch it again, the first one.
Yeah, I really like it.
really
It's
good.
great.
Yeah. But I agree, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
We
Alright.
have the greatest male of
Oh.
all time.
Before the greatest male...
I don't think he's finished reading his. Have you?
Oh, we're done with that. I was going to say that Shivang Gupta,
Oh,
a
yeah, one
regular writer in,
Yes.
asks us about our thoughts on sci-fi OG H.G. Wells.
Oh man, I love H.G. Wells.
Yeah. He's more like OG Wells.
Well, actually, Jules. Jules. I'm more of I'm Team Vern. # Team Vern.
Yeah.
Jules Vern. But
I also
H.G.
really
Wells,
like
man.
Jules Verne more than E.G. Wells, but
H.G.
it's
Wells
not a
did-
contest.
It's not a contest. Both of them have given amazing contributions to science fiction, and because of that, to science itself. I mean, a lot of ideas have come from their books, from their visualizations, or at least their novelizations of like good science fiction ideas. H.G. Wells did War of the Worlds, man.
What are the
The
world's
guy
one of the greatest-
is he's one of the greatest
one of the
and
strangest endings
best
of a book
anticlimax
Yeah.
of any. Do you know the story of War of the Worlds?
Nope.
Or Orson Welles?
ever. Do you want us to spoil it for you?
Sure. I don't think I'll get around to watching
Okay,
it.
so
okay,
War of
Spielberg
the-
has made a
yeah.
good film as well on it. Underrated, I will add. And Orson Welles has done what I would consider also to be the greatest adaptation of that. But go ahead.
A
Dilbar.
radio adaptation of War of the Worlds. But War of the Worlds is about aliens who attack Earth.
The OG.
The OG aliens who
Alien
attack
invasion,
Earth.
yeah.
They're like giant creatures with beaks that walk around on like spaceshipy things, but with tripod
Tentacles, yeah.
legs.
No, more than that. No, they have. Oh, yeah, they have tripod legs.
Yeah, like the tentacles are their body parts, but their machines are tripod legs. Anyway, they're really creepy. But how they die
Wait. Okay, so I'll tell you what they
okay.
do. So they keep abducting humans and turning them into dust and turning them into... Well, Spielberg has taken some liberties, but they basically abduct humans and for whatever, mongoloid, whatever weird experiments that they want to do, and they want to like convert them into something. And there's a hero who has a family and they're trying to escape. And everyone
you're talking about the Spielberg version now.
Well, I mean,
there's no family in the book,
but there is there's a professor and there are a couple of main characters in the book as well. But it's like more, it's, there is a main, like there's not a family.
There's a narrator.
There's
it's
a narrator.
all first person.
Yeah, but there's no family. And in the Tom Cruise is in, in the Spielberg one.
You just combined the Tom Cruise
I'm
movie.
giving you the best version ever. Okay,
cool.
But basically, and everyone's trying to come up with a way to either escape or kill them or do something or save somebody, and in the end, this is the greatest ending ever. Suddenly they all hide out and they're just like, let's just wait for them to pass. They wake up after a few days or a couple of weeks or whatever it is, and they wake up and all the aliens are dead.
Nobody did anything,
Just
but everything's
dead.
dead. The earth is free.
And you know how they die?
Is that the spoiler show?
Yeah, it's one of the greatest endings and most sciencey endings ever.
Yeah.
They die because of the bacteria and the viruses of our planet, like
Yep.
the in the air, because they're not used to
Their
it.
immune system is not used to it.
And they die.
It's almost like there's a nasty bug going around. All right. Now,
wait. Our producer Zoya has some alternative thoughts.
Oh yes, I'm officially resigned as producer.
Okay,
by
hold
the
on,
way.
She's the producer for this episode. I'm just saying, yeah. Good. No, it's fine. Zoya, scream and tell us.
War of the Worlds, the aliens die because Tom Cruise leaves like a pack of bombs inside, because they have a shield outside that cannot be, like, you can't penetrate a bullet through with that.
Right. Okay,
Correct.
so the movie version...
That's the liberties
Wow,
the movie
I am so
version
proud
takes.
of this producer.
The Spielberg version has a very Tom Cruise-y ending, which is like Tom Cruise is the reason why the aliens die.
Obviously,
However,
you can't have Tom Cruise there and like an alien just sneezing and going like, oh,
it's like,
excuse me, I'm
starring
feeling
Tom
a little
Cruise,
ill.
bacteria.
The real hero.
Yeah. But in the books, the cool story about Orson Welles is that when he was making this radio adaptation, he did such he didn't do it like a play, like he did it like an actual radio broadcasty kind of version, kind of like Night Vale
I
or
thought that was a
something.
myth.
Well,
The panic.
let's tell it anyway. It's a great
anyway.
story.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of freaked out because they thought it was real, because they were broadcasting on the radio and they said, aliens have attacked. We don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's not a bad Orson Welles.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
I used to be
now
radio.
we Anyway. come now to what Jishnu has called the mothership of all
This is
fan
the
mails.
greatest mail we have ever received of all time.
I feel
I'm
like
sorry for
it's a-
those who want to get into Russian Doll, we will.
Yeah.
But just you have to hear this. This is unbelievable.
It's intense. So
and it's
it
going to take a
comes-
few minutes.
We've
so
waited a few weeks to even like bring it up.
We've
because
just been processing it.
yeah, because I mean, we would ideally have loved to have Jishnu here as well, because it concerns all four of us, but mostly Janam and Jishnu.
Yeah.
I was so confused when I read the title of the email. I was like, wait.
What is the title of the email, Dinkar?
The title of the email is For Jishnu and Janam, you are needed more than you know.
Damn it!
Yeah.
That's so
Like,
good.
I'm already hooked.
I'm hooked.
All right. So this comes from a person named Sandeep Chakraborty, living in Japan for years, that needs 2 digits to represent.
Wow, so more than 9 years.
More than 9 years is
Good,
what
good,
we're
good,
at.
good, good.
All right.
Arigato.
Yep. So he writes a little bit more about himself. He's been listening to Geek Fruit for the past 5 months.
Nice.
This is the first time he's writing to
Good,
us.
great number of months.
And
Even though it's
like-
in single digit. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay
Don't you
with
think Sandeep and Sudeep sound so similar?
Oh no! Do you think it's the well? Okay, whatever. We'll
I
get
don't know
into
if
we'll
I'm
get
ready
into
to
fan
dissect that.
theories after discussing the mail. So let's dive straight into it. As he says, I will share a lot of thoughts about what I feel for Dinkar and Tejas. Unlike the title, so the title was clickbait. He says for Jishnu and
but
Janam.
most of the mail is definitely about
Yeah,
It is
Janam.
about
but
us,
it's
but-
also about us. He tackles all of it.
And spoiler, right in the end,
Wait, Jonathan.
he's writing a...
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Wow.
okay, cool. Yeah, I can spoil it. Okay, I thought you were talking about the mail. Yeah, but good.
Okay, anyways. Continue.
Okay, Jishnu and Janam, you are needed more than you might know. And then he lists in point format.
He did bullet points.
He
I love
is-
this guy.
with bold...
Yeah, he's killing it.
He's
So-
formatted the crap out of
Yeah.
the email. I love it.
So, number 1, audience connection. The audience wants to be connected in the podcast, and not everyone is as geeky as D and T. If I put them at a 10, Jishnu and Janam can be an 8 and a 4 in geekiness. I don't know. I feel
can't
like
believe somebody's ranked me on my geekiness.
Well, I mean,
but I'm glad that my lack of geekiness is so relatable to people.
I don't know if it's a lack of geekiness. You're geeky in separate spheres than us. Like if you
Yeah.
ask me about the Human Centipede
Centipede,
movies,
yeah, exactly.
I'd be
I'm a
like,
4 on 10 at best.
I'm like a 0.
I'm actually a 0, yeah. I've not seen the movies at all.
As opposed to Jishnu and Janam, who have delved extensively into them.
Yeah, and nothing like the Human Centipede to make you more relatable. to
Exactly.
people.
Anyway, point number 2 is I'm giving people the gist because this is a really long
This is
email.
so good.
Yeah.
I get to pull Janam and Jishnu's leg a lot now. This is
No,
good.
but
This is great.
when I was reading, I read the first line saying not everyone is as geeky as D&T. I was laughing internally and agreeing with what he said because there have been multiple times I have tuned out because of what you guys are saying, especially when you're talking about things
And I believe
haven't
they
watched,
pay you to tune us
like
in.
like X-Men and stuff. When you're discussing things which I am not even aware of,
that's
I'm
just
like,
our
wow,
job.
this is so alien to me.
Well,
we're
it's-
iterating on the assumption that people already know what we're talking
yeah,
about.
I mean, but that's the whole.
Which is
that's the whole
exactly what
premise of
Sandeep
the
is bringing up, which is audience connection. Jishnu and Janam bring it because
D&T
sometimes
Anda.
Yeah, D&T Anda. Number 2, elaborating further on this point, you save us. Sometimes on the episodes where it's only D&T, they geek out so much that they forget to put context into a conversation.
Agreed.
Janam and Jishnu.
This is not a mail about Janam and Jishnu.
Yeah,
This is about
this-
how D&T suck.
Have you considered how Sandeep is very close to Sudeep and Janam pointed it out? It's almost like she wrote an email and went like, I need a fake name.
Yeah.
And then she saw Sudeep's email and went like, Sandeep.
And I've been in Japan for more than
And
It's
I
a-
have spelt my name correctly throughout the email. Please
is
note
good.
that.
Yeah, it's a Mrs. Doubtfire situation where like she was typing the email and she's like, I need a fake name. She looks out the window, sun. Then she thinks about her life and goes like, deep. And then Chakraborty is because she was watching Dance India
No, I was
Dance.
sitting
I
in
got
Bengal
nothing.
sweets and having.
D&T performs better around you is point number 3. They are more human when you are around as opposed to our...
She keeps referring to the fact that the conversation is so alien.
They are more human when you're around, except when Jishnu pisses them off sometimes, but that's greater fun. Jishnu doesn't piss me off, he's my best friend.
Yeah, Jishnu's your best friend, and he doesn't follow the Gregorian calendar. Sorry.
True. Number 4, different perspective. It can be as simple as Jishnu just dives into a Quentin Tarantino in a Nolan episode, or some very humane angle, which Janam spoke about in the Bandersnatch episode. So,
Something I'm still disappointed with,
I'm
by the
noticing
way.
a trend of basically saying Jishnu and Janam are the humans and where
Where the H.G. Wells aliens.
well, yeah, we should watch out for bacteria. Number 5, you represent us. As I said, I imagine myself to be in the conversation, and J being in the forum helps that visualization. So you are the audience perspective character. You know how in like most movies it's always like one guy who's joining the office and it's like his first day in, so they're like, all right, let me show you around then, and then they show him things.
Yep.
But basically it's an excuse, as a plot device to say I have to explain stuff to the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a new guy.
always a new guy to explain stuff to the audience.
Yeah. All right. Now, this is part 1
Okay, that
of
was
a
just
pretty
part
big
one.
thesis. Next, random feedbacks. Janam, please prepare yourself better for an episode you're in. Like in Nolan, I was looking forward to your opinions, but you were hardly in loop.
In my defense,
has
we
she's-
decided the topic 2 minutes before recording the episode.
2 minutes?
Literally, we
I
walk
feel
into
like
the
it was
studio.
more like 40 seconds.
At least 3.5.
No.
Oh, I
minutes.
felt like it
Wow.
was lesser.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we had the advantage of having been Nolan bros all our lives.
I also want
And
to point
a
out.
dissertation on.
I want to
thesis on Nolan.
point out something to all our fans and listeners right now. It may come across like we decide how or what we're going to talk about a few minutes before the episode, and that may be completely true.
I think this was
But
the
not
only
always.
That was an
time that's
exceptional.
happened.
But
This
not
was an
as-
exception.
Yeah, but not
Yeah.
always. We do come in with an idea of what we're going to talk
That's
about.
because we care. We had
We're
a
professionals.
topic that we had in mind, and right as we sat at the recording table, we went like,
Nah.
yeah, it's not good enough.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then
we want only the best for you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
point number 2, Jishnu, 2018 is irrelevant in bold. I've been trying to tell Jishnu, but he doesn't listen. Well, no, you're one of the victims of Thanos Snap, a damn good and lucky one. He just took 1 year from your life. All right. Number 3, Nolan episode. Guys, what are you doing? There's 5 exclamation marks. After setting up such a nice premise, you followed up with such a downhill episode in part 2.
But I thought he enjoyed Tarantino discussion.
He did, but I think he means that we kind of built up and then closed out that episode really quickly, because it's more like Jishnu and I treated that episode as
I heard the episode.
a remake
I was
of the
supposed
previous
to
episode.
be on that episode, and
Yeah,
I was preparing for it
I
the
know,
previous
I
night,
know.
but then I was sick.
So you took
Yeah,
point
yeah.
one into consideration.
Yeah.
No, but she already said that she was going to do that.
Yeah, and I was watching Interstellar the previous night before I fell sick.
Oh
and
man, I
was-
got it. Just got it on Blu-ray. Sorry. Anyway, but listen. My point is, we aren't done with the Nolan series. We're gonna come back.
We're
with
not.
it.
We
Yeah,
will
yeah,
come
yeah.
back with it, which is
And I'll
which
bring my
brings me to
dissertation.
What out of the Nolan series is left now?
Oh, plenty.
Interstellar and the Dark Knights primarily.
Yeah,
I feel like we've covered.
I thought that was covered in part 2.
No, we just brought them up. We didn't
Okay.
delve into them,
Yeah,
and there's a
they-
lot of delving because
they spoke more about Tarantino. That's true.
That's true. As Sandeep says in point 4, challenge for the next or next to next Nolan episode. Come on, we got to cap it at next, yeah. We can't do 4 Nolan episodes.
We
We're
can do
not
as
that
many as we
Nolan
want,
bro-y.
man. It's all good. It's our show.
Yeah, I know, but I want to cap it at 3.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, when you speak about Interstellar, don't just talk about how accurately it tried to depict relativity, but also spice it up with how inaccurately it tried to reconcile with quantum physics, or talk about the human angle or artistic liberty, brackets, puke.
Oh God. Okay,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what I was going to talk about.
About the
Quantum theory. No, I was going to talk about production design and stuff. Yeah, but cool. Yeah.
We'll discuss
I'm
quantum
gonna-
physics
I'm
and the
gonna-
grand
yeah.
unifying theory.
No,
It's all part of our it's all part of our ambit. Then
Yeah.
to the people bullying Dinkar for inaccuracies, either watch Doordarshan or get a life.
Damn, I guess I got to watch Doordarshan now.
Stop bullying me for inaccuracies is what I'm saying. But yeah, as we've said prior to this, we're a terrifyingly inaccurate show.
It's okay.
I have another theory. Dinka has written this email.
Oh.
And it took me like this long to get to my main thesis, which is people shouldn't bully me.
Okay.
And also, like, why would I trash on myself for the entire first part and not call myself human? I'm the most human of all of you guys.
I always feel like that would be a compliment for you. Like you would enjoy that.
All right, number 6, D&T. Well, what can I say or where to start and finish? Now, here's where we get to the amazing part. Let me put this as part 1 and talk about you both in part 2.
My God, this is like something like, like...
In brackets,
I'll see
actually
you-
now I'm a little tired.
Yep.
See ya.
Wow.
I would be
You
tired
exhausted
if I,
somebody.
like, yeah, I think
You just exhausted
Sandeep's
someone.
put more thought and effort into this email than we put into most things in our lives.
I think he's still typing out part 2.
Yeah.
Which is why he's not coming
Man, I'm
yet.
scared. This is like one of those things when you get a text from your mom saying, we gotta talk. And it's like, oh no, I'm not looking forward to this.
This is probably what my mom will talk to me about. She'll be
Yeah.
like, what is this? Look, Janam and Jishnu can be human. They're getting like 10 on 10 in
Not an
human.
alien.
What are you getting 8? And I'll be like,
4
Ma,
on-
but I only studied for like 9 human points.
Wait,
so it's
I
more
got a
like
4, Jishnu got an 8. You guys...
in geekiness, but in
Yeah.
humanity.
What in
Oh.
humanity, we're 0.
yeah,
That's true.
we
Oh,
are
gosh.
non-humans.
That's okay.
Anyway,
I feel like it's perfectly balanced, if I may quote Thanos. Yeah, you guys are humanizing factors. I'm waiting for some like super nerd to go like, Dinkar and Tejas, you are needed more than you know.
maybe that will
Maybe
be
that's part
forthcoming
2.
in part 2.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we'll
there's a
see.
lot to discuss. Speaking of part 2, let's close out part 1 of this episode, right? And come back and talk about Russian Doll.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. As I mentioned over the last couple of weeks, we've been running a survey on our website. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. Please fill it out if you haven't already. And just so you guys know, there is a prize involved for the 25 people we will select at random, and we will send them an IVM Podcast mug. So this week on Cyrus Says, Cyrus's guest is Yash Banagev, co-founder of Bombay Canteen and O Pedro. He talks about the intricacies of the F&B industry in India and the origins of his ventures. On Geek Fruit, Tejas, Dinkar and Janam talk about Netflix's latest series, Russian Doll, and why you should finish watching it right away. On Ganatantra, the hosts unpack how political violence works in India, and why the absence of large-scale communal riots does not necessarily indicate social harmony. On Dale Harate, the hosts are joined by Rama Prasad, who translated the Amarush Shataka, a collection of love poems from Sanskrit to Kannada. He talks about the immortal nature of this work. On Football Twaddle, the hosts discuss the Kepa and Surrey incidents along with everything that happened in the Premier League. On the Habit Coach podcast, Ashton guides you through starting a sugarless life and the importance of substituting sugar with stevia. In the season finale of our Hindi show Cinemaya, Swati Bakshi is in conversation with Alankrita Srivastav, who discusses her journey from journalism to filmmaking and everything in between. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Welcome back to the Geek Fruit Podcast. So we discussed some extensive fan mail.
Man, there was no way we were not going to take time to discuss that
yeah,
mail.
absolutely. I think it was well deserved. But now let's get into the main subject of discussion this episode, which is Netflix series Russian Doll.
Right. Great
Alright.
show. I love it. I really liked it. I'm just going to go out and say it. Like,
Absolutely,
I really enjoyed
At the
it.
outset, let's just say, great show.
Yeah.
We're all agreed on this?
Yes. Did any of you have this thing like before you started watching the show, people were just like, oh, you gotta watch it, and then
Only, I mean, we have a frequent collaborator, or at least she was. Now one of our friends, Ruchi, who is a friend of the fruit. She mentioned saying watch Russian Doll, but it was already on my list because, I mean, I'll watch anything Amy Poehler obviously makes. I mean, and Natasha Lyonne.
Is also really...
I've heard of her because she's in like other...
Orange is the New Black.
I've not seen that
She's
show.
been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah, but she's been around for a while apparently.
Yeah, I primarily know her actually because she was on the Comedy Bang Bang podcast one time and I really liked her.
Yeah.
She feels like a character. She's like...
She's
I don't think she even
awesome.
has to play. It's just her.
That's literally how she
Yeah.
talks. Like when I first heard her on the
Yeah.
podcast, she's like a female Larry David. You know, with like
Yeah.
she's got that accent, she's got that like slightly, or like
She's just like wonderfully weird.
Yeah, like
it's great.
she's a walking, talking New York.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. New York.
She's a I'm walking here.
I'm
New
walking
York.
in. She's an I'm walking in New York. Exactly.
She's
yeah.
like hey, come on, come on.
She's a cockroach.
I'm a cockroach. Yeah.
Come on, I'm a cockroach.
Yeah, so she's great. She's awesome, obviously, and the whole show is spearheaded by her. But may I add that I loved watching this for a couple of reasons. One is, you know, how we've started doing less and less series because of their sheer length, and you
Yep.
know, like every episode is like an hour or 40 minutes. This is a breeze at like 20 to 25 minutes each episode, and there are only 8 of them. And so that's one reason I could get through it easily. But the other thing, even though it kind of periodically, like episodically gets darker and darker, but it doesn't reach a level of darkness, even though they're talking about very serious themes like trauma and things like that through the show. It doesn't get so dark that you would just, I was exhausted by it. And I think that's why it's like a really easy watch, even though it talks about really, really deep themes, which is a perfect balance about things that I really like to watch. So I think for that reason,
I
also
do
is another
believe
reason
there's
I
a lot
love
of
the show.
I think there's a lot of depth in the show
Yeah.
that is kind of hidden in how easy it is to watch, and I
Exactly.
think multiple viewings of this at a later date will
Definitely.
definitely be pretty rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. Especially
There's
since
a lot
it's
to
this
unpack.
Yeah.
vantage point-ish Rashomon style story that's happening. there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this show came about, like Natasha Lyonne's been developing the idea for like 7 years.
Yes, this is what I heard as well. Yeah.
Yeah, she was on Colbert where she was discussing it with him, and so her and Nora Ephron of all people.
Yeah, and Delia
well, first
Ephron
of
as
all,
well,
they're
yeah.
such New Yorky people. I can see why they're friends.
Nora Ephron.
Were
Yeah,
friends.
but she's such a, Nora Ephron is. I don't consider her to be New York. She's just like America.
She's elite New York.
Yeah,
Is she
she's
related to
American
Zac
Dream.
Efron?
No.
Different spelling.
Yeah,
Oh.
this is
Nora
EPH.
Ephron is the
all the
When
all
Harry
the,
Met Sally.
exactly.
She wrote
I can confuse her with
Nancy Myers.
yeah.
True.
It sucks because they were both in their heyday around the 90s when they were making
Correct.
it. Nora Ephron is the interview, the last one with Robert De Niro and stuff like that. Is that her as well? We're gonna have to check up on that.
We will check up on that.
Yes.
But yeah.
As a rom-com aficionado, I do love a lot of the movies that she's made, and Dinkar in mere seconds is going to list out some of the films.
You've got mail. Sleepless
Love
in
it,
Seattle.
love
When
it.
Harry Met
Oh.
Sally.
Yes, love it. I think Sleepless in Seattle is not a perfect film, but it's good. I like it.
I also think it's far from a perfect film.
Yeah.
I was looking for
But you've got mail.
the interview. I don't know. There is no the interview.
Then
on
that's
here.
Nancy Myers.
Then that's Nancy Myers. Okay,
Not the
fair enough.
interview. I'm so sorry. The intern. What am I talking about? The
The
interview
intern is
is
Nancy Myers, right?
the one with Robert De Niro and Hathaway.
Yeah.
Correct.
But you can see why
She
I'm
also made
confused.
Julie and Julia.
Oh, I love
Bewitched.
that movie. Yes.
Yeah, all great
Bewitched
movies.
was a shame.
I like Bewitched.
No, the TV show, the movie with Will Ferrell
The
and Nicole
movie with
Kidman.
Will Ferrell.
Oh.
I quite like that
Yeah?
movie. I feel like it was sweet.
Okay.
Not great, but sweet.
Maybe I've not seen it in a while. No. But anyway,
Yeah, and a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, that's who
Yeah.
Nora Ephron was. She passed?
No.
No.
Why?
What?
What, Nora Ephron? Oh my god. Are you serious?
I better check this.
Yeah, you got.
Yeah, she passed in 2012, dude. How did you guys not know this? I mean, Janam, you weren't sure who she was, so that's fine. But
No,
Nora
man,
Ephron...
I had no idea.
I
Damn,
assume
that
you're
must
talking
be
about
very
someone
sad.
who's pretty much alive right now.
No,
Oh,
Nora Ephron died in 2012.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm confusing it for Nancy Myers. Anyway.
So, I mean, in that interview with Colbert, this is part of the reason she brings it up, where she talks about how Nora Ephron and her always like got along really well and kept discussing ideas.
Right.
And so it's kind of like a sweet like recollection of her friend as well.
Fair enough.
And she talks about how Nora Ephron sent her an email saying like, here's what we discussed today, some ideas.
Yeah, some minutes.
And, minutes of the meeting type situation where she goes like, a girl called Nadia who keeps reliving her life. Should there be sex? ?
Yeah.
Was the bullet points of the email.
Just like an existentialism and things like that, like stuff that she wanted to see in a female character that is not bogged down by just female, like known for only female things, like wanted to just discuss like bigger problems that are akin to
I
everyone.
don't think her being a woman was at all a part of it. It's just that Natasha Lyonne was creating it, and the idea that she was in an existential crisis constantly, and like a chain smoking New Yorkie type, which was again like it was obviously
chain smoker,
like chain smoker was part of their notes for the character, and that's obviously like it's inspired by how she was feeling at the time,
right?
And she's female, so the character ended up being female, but you could easily flip the situation and it'd be similar, which the show also does in parts.
Yeah.
But anyway, just to set the table, the premise of the show is that the main character called Nadia Volvikov, which I thought was
Russian, right?
Yeah. Like Russian-ish.
She says that her grandparents were in the Holocaust.
Yeah, they were Holocaust survivors. Anyway, she is at her 36th birthday party being thrown for her by a friend of hers, and she abruptly dies on that night. But she comes back to life in that same party and has to basically figure out why she's stuck in a time loop and how to get out of it.
Yeah.
That's the basis of the show. It's a premise that's been done, obviously, a lot of times.
I feel like we'll get to those films.
We will get to those times.
Groundhog Day and everything.
Yeah, I mean, Groundhog Day obviously set the template for stuff like this. But right off the bat, what do you guys think of how the show unfolded? We're going to keep this spoiler free, correct? Because I'm assuming not a lot of people have gone through it yet.
I think we can keep it spoiler free till
the last segment.
Till the last
Yeah, of
segment,
course.
then we can talk about it. Because I feel like a lot of it is in the denouement.
In the reveal at the end, yes, correct. But keep it spoiler free for now.
Right. Yeah, man, I loved it. I think obviously it starts off being very driven by her character. She's so enigmatic and she's so insanely like watchable, because the first thing I thought was like, I watched the show and I was like, wow, this is such a 2019 show, like as in like it feels really fresh.
I love that unlike a lot of what Netflix sometimes uses as a crutch when they develop shows, which is like this is set in the 80s because the people watching it grew up in the 80s or whatever. This doesn't use any like nostalgia device as a crutch.
It felt really fresh. And the other thing, it felt like a very auteuristic kind of film, like or like a show. Like it's very driven by it's not like something that has been cobbled together by the minds at Netflix and all that stuff. This is obviously very driven by the three creators of the show, which is
Natasha
Lyonne,
I believe
Amy Poehler,
so
and my gosh, I can't remember her.
Headley, Headley. I'll look it up.
Yeah, but you can tell that this was like this is based on an idea that has been gestating for some time, and because it feels like it's got like a very strong DNA to it, and it's got a very strong look. In fact, I found this tweet on somebody was tweeting saying that I love Natasha so much. Somebody was talking, she feels like Shirley MacLaine drawn by Frank Miller, like such a Frank Miller kind of character, which is like the most perfect description for this character. Felt very like somebody who's come alive from like a comic book or something.
You're right. I mean, I kind of related her a lot to, she's such a character that you already know when you're thrown into her life. She feels like a brash take on like a character from a Nora Ephron movie, really. That whole, like, I mean, basically a Larry David type.
Yeah, a very Larry David kind of character.
Leslie Headland was the third creator.
Headland. But I definitely love that about it. The thing that kind of got me into the show, and this is the way I like to, and this is the reason why I like science fiction or adventure or fantasy, anything like that, is that it does take all like serious topics or comedy or whatever it is. It can take any genre and like put a scientific or a very like a very plot-based spin on it and tell the story even better than if you just told it like linearly. And what I like about this show is that it's talking about a lot of serious themes that, you know, any 30-somethings, 20-somethings might be dealing with. More so 30-somethings, I'd say. And put like a spin on it, saying that, oh, the premise is that she dies every time. Like she's dying like constantly, and she has to keep resetting back to a point. Now, obviously, for somebody like me, that's such an easy pull for me to watch the show. I was like, oh, cool. It's obviously like Groundhog Day. And I know what Groundhog Day is about, and I know what the ending is and why that keeps happening to him. And I've also seen Edge of Tomorrow. In fact, I saw it recently. And I've seen all these kinds of films which have this very reset-y kind of things. And there's always like a strong lesson. And they're usually the same lesson. In Edge of Tomorrow, it's more of the gamification of like this war and things like that. In Groundhog's Day, it's because he needs to reflect on the kind of person that he is. And in this one, there's an
element of that, yes.
It's an element on that. So I knew that we were going to head towards that. But I don't know if I would have immediately watched it if it didn't have that little device.
Yeah, but like everyone that I kind of really like, like people I follow or whatever, was talking about it, so it was compelling to me.
But my point is that, you know, it's for somebody like me, that
brings
device,
me
that
to
plot device is
good perspective. Janam, tell me, like we're obviously not human, so we're coming to this from a different perspective. But have you seen a lot of time loopy stuff like this before? Like this premise specifically? None of them,
I haven't
right?
watched Groundhog Day. Which are the other ones?
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow is another big one.
There are
Source Code, I believe.
Source Code is like that.
Which I haven't seen.
Also,
Source Code is the one with Jake Gyllenhaal. I haven't seen it.
And Russell Peters randomly.
And Russell Peters.
Yeah, he's there in a bit of it. Yeah.
He get hurt real bad?
He get hurt real bad.
I would say this is the first one I watched.
Okay.
Which has this
so
device.
How did the device feel to you? Because this is fresh. Give us the human take.
So the human take is that...
The human take starring John.
I was recommended this show by a couple of friends, and they told me the premise is like...
Oh, so humans have friends. This is...
Yes.
Okay.
Is this how your species
I'm
interacts?
taking notes as you speak.
Sorry,
yeah, so they told me that it's just this person celebrating her 36th birthday, and she keeps dying and waking up there, like, in the bathroom. And like that's all I was told, and I was like, what more can you do with the show? Like, it didn't sound that interesting to me.
This didn't sound interesting to you?
Not as much, because I'll tell you why. I was intrigued to start the show. I did. I saw the first episode. Honestly, I wasn't even in the show in the first episode because I felt it was a little dull. But second episode onwards is where it actually started getting interesting for me, and also funnier. There's so much humor in this.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like the first episode, yeah, you're right. That first episode kind of just throws you into a very New Yorky world, which I really liked. Like that first episode could have been a part of any rom-com from like the early 90s if it had to be. It's kind of just setting a very different kind of tone from what the show becomes. So yeah, I liked it, but I can see why you didn't. But did you not find this device gripping by itself? Because
I did. Like, obviously towards the end of the show I was in from the second episode onwards, but first episode I found it weirdly, it was quite dull, I would say. Like,
because nothing happens. It's really it's more of just like putting up this tableau of like, this is what a party in New York is.
No, but it's also like, you know that if there's going to be a device like this, and I find this to be true again in Edge of Tomorrow, it's done best, I'd say, in Edge of Tomorrow. But just this part of it, which is that the moment the character has to kind of understand what's happening, the first time the person has to reset and come back to, you know, the oh my god, what's happening? This is weird. This all feels so strange. And that confusion, sometimes there's the things that like bring you down from it. In Edge of Tomorrow, they do the best, I think, like to deal with that section of it. But in Groundhog Day,
because there are other people,
because you know, because you know what's going to happen. It's like one of those cases where you know more than the character, right? You've already understood that this is the premise of the show or the movie or whatever it is, and so you already know more than the character, and that's never the best place to be, because like you are waiting then for a character to find out what's going to happen to him or her. In this show as well, the way they beat that little part of it is with humor, I think. So you're right. So, you know, like the fact that, you know, in Netflix, in Twitter bios also, sweet birthday baby, you know, it's just that right now, which is funny. And I like to see that, because
birthday baby,
because those characters are so funny, and they're so like hipsterly, like weird.
I love that. That's why I feel like that's why I really liked the first episode. Nothing happens for the longest time until she dies for the first time towards the third act, I'd say. But until then, it's just really cool to meet these characters. They're all weirdly
they're all weird.
quirky
And
in their own way.
Yeah, exactly. And they're very unique and very well written and, drawn out and stuff. The other cool thing I like about is that, and now in retrospect, you realize how important the first episode is in context to the end of the show. So which is why I kind of wanted to almost go back and watch it. I've still not done it yet, but I will, because a lot of like elements that are written in that kind of play off way later on.
In the first episode.
Yeah. So I found
like
that to be
the guy dropping that thing in the supermarket.
Yeah, exactly.
They
All
do
the
tie
things,
together.
yeah.
It's a really tightly written
very
show.
tightly
It's
written
8
show.
episodes, half an
Super.
hour, which I think is an amazing length.
Yeah.
Basically, that's like, it's 240 minutes.
Exactly.
It didn't
Or
even feel
less.
like half an hour. I thought it was like 20 minutes.
It is
Yeah.
like
It's 20 to 25 minutes,
I think the
yeah.
longest one is close to half an hour. But yeah,
Okay.
it's basically it's a couple of hours of watching, really.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
perfect
It's really nice, and
because it's very economical. It doesn't feel stretched out or padded out at all, which
Yeah.
I think is
Very
refreshing, especially for Netflix.
And considering the amount of like bizarre dialogue they managed to kind of throw in there, like there's this one like really funny scene, which is she goes to her. And this is a character I relate to a lot, which is like her mother is no more. She doesn't have parents anymore, but she has like this mother figure whose name is Ruth. And she goes and she tells us, and then I died, and then I went and I broke my neck, and then I died again. And then she just looks at her and she's like, "You were such a difficult teenager," which I love. It's
I
so
love
funny.
Ruth.
She was
Ruth is
such a
like, again,
Carrie
like
Fisher,
such a New York, right?
such a Carrie Fisher type character, like
Oh, yeah, she
Exactly.
looked like her.
she just reminded me so.
She
in fact,
reminded me of like Diane Keaton who just smoked a lot.
Exactly. Right? And it's weird because like these are like Carrie Fisher is in When Harry Met Sally and stuff.
Correct.
It's the same type, that archetype of that really weird like mom figure. It's like great. So I love that. In fact, I
I really liked Natasha's dialogues also. Like
Yeah.
the part where she's climbing down the fire escape for some reason, which is actually more dangerous than the staircase.
Yeah.
And she's the first time she gets her blonde friend down, and she's like, "Are you gonna go back up onto the pile?" That and what
then
was the other one?
she's also like, "Oh, we have a fire escape. I have to update my Airbnb." it's great.
Natasha
Yeah.
Lyonne is amazing though.
Yeah.
Like
So
she's
good.
pulling off so many things. She directed the last
The
episode
last and wrote it
and
and
like she
plenty.
great premise, and she acts it like a bomb. Like she's electrifying every time you look at her. She pulls
you
off
can't
like
take
the
your eyes
funny
off her,
stuff, and she pulls off the serious stuff
Yeah.
with like
I
so
laugh
much
a lot
depth.
in that scene where she dies in the ambulance accident
Yeah.
with when her Ruth, I think Ruth sends her off and she's there,
Yeah.
and then she dies, and then the next time she wakes up in the bathroom, and then she's just like, "Let's this party in the mouth." And she's going, and then the next scene, like it's just literally like cut to her just dancing and smiling at the
Yeah.
party, and it was like hilarious.
Yeah, my,
It's
the,
hilarious.
my
Yeah.
other favorite death was where she's like, "Man, it's so cold," and she cuddles up with Horace the hobo, and then she wakes up, she's like,
I
"Fuck."
froze to
It's
death.
like I froze to that. God, that was dark.
Yeah.
My favorite was I
Which
think the
is so
second
funny.
one where she comes back to life and she just like she walks out of the bathroom just like looking all around, hands in the air. She goes like, "The universe is f***ing with me and I will not engage."
Yeah, such great dialogue in this show. I want to talk about the other character, which is actually not revealed in the trailer. And they have a great trailer, by the way, which I saw at the end. I saw it at the end of the show.
Still
Which is
haven't
so the trailer is like, it starts with the Netflix titles and it goes and da-da-da and all that stuff, and she dies.
By
And
the way,
there's a-
speaking of the Netflix title, have you seen the new Netflix
Yeah,
intro?
it's
Yeah.
got that little
Colored,
universe
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yep.
So it does the little Netflix title and it goes through, and then she dies, and then the Netflix titles come back again, and it
Nice.
starts like it's another promo, but it's the same promo. Like it's like, and it just loops on.
Gotta
Just
get
really-
up,
gotta get up. That song, man, is so good. So the other character, which is not, it's only teased towards the end of the trailer, which is such a great way to leave the premise open, right? Which is that, and they bring it in at such a good point, which is like, you can't have this character alone going through this without it, so you need like you
Yeah.
find out that person's the reason for everything. And the trailer ends with, she's like, "Hey, didn't you get the news? We're about to die." And he's just like, "Oh, that's okay. I'm dying all the time." She's like, "Me too." Brilliant. And
Yeah.
so we get introduced to this other character who I've never actually seen before. He's been on a couple of shows, apparently. I've never seen him before. So
he wasn't familiar to me
another
either.
reason why this feels so fresh to me is because I've not seen any of these characters like ever
Also,
on
his
screen.
his girlfriend also was there in Orange is the New Black.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was one of the prisoners who gets pregnant. I forgot her name, but
Okay. In the MS, this show
Yeah.
she's Beatrice. So this
Yeah,
main character,
Beatrice.
Alan Zaveri, which is such a Parsi name.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so Alan is played...
Parsi? No.
Zaveri?
Zaveri
Is that a Parsi name?
Gujarati, right?
I thought so. I thought it was what jewelers call it.
Correct. Tribhuvan Das, Bhimji Zaveri.
TBZ, man.
TBZ, yeah. So see, we meet Alan, who's a character who's going through the exact same thing, and they happen to meet each other in this elevator where they both die together, and then they find out that are we both dying at the exact same time, which is also brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that also, and I love his character. I actually really thought it was just. Like really, he didn't have to be like this perfect dude. He's got,
but he's not,
even more
right? Like,
problems.
I think that's what is really that brings us to the main theme of the show, which I felt like. I mean, a lot of the times, in fact, the one criticism I might have about the show is sometimes it's like a little too on the nose. But they say repeatedly, you can't do these things alone. So Nadia is a mess in like a very chaotic kind of way.
Yeah.
Whereas Alan Zaveri is a guy like who's
trying to put it all together.
He's trying to put it all together, but he's a mess. Like he's got
The
his
universe
own issues. Yeah, like he's he's in a terrible relationship that no one is happy in.
He's not even like accepted that is not actually working out.
I mean, essentially, like he's dealing with like if you treat it as a layer of psychology, which basically again the show does by making the main character's guardian figure a therapist.
Correct, yeah.
It's that she's dealing with chaos basically, while he's dealing with a depression of sorts.
Yeah, she is dealing with
dealing with trauma.
Her trauma from her mother and things like that, and his is like denial.
Her mother.
Her mother, yeah. And what do you call it? And he's dealing with like, and he's it reflects in his OCD or whatever, his perfectionist kind of persona. Yeah. But and he's trying to fix things. Obviously, he doesn't. But man, his character is so good. What I really like about this whole thing is that like I said, it was such an interesting way to deal with the plot device. You find out it's an interesting way to pull an audience, but it's a good way to kind of tell the story that they're trying to do.
Yeah, the idea that they need each other and they have to help each other. Yeah. It's kind of a play on. So Groundhog Day is essentially what causes Phil, who's Bill Murray's character, to get out of the loop is that he learns to become a better person over the course of time. Which this is also kind of a play. So he's an asshole at the start of the movie.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do anything in life. He's like a big shot like anchor, and doesn't want to do the small story in this
about Groundhog Day.
What's the name of the place? Punxsutawney. Yeah. And he has to go and do a story on the groundhog, which is where they get the title of the film. And the groundhog is basically the moment the groundhog can see its shadow is the beginning of spring.
That's an American tradition.
A
lot of devices that this series takes from the movie actually. So the idea of her like rebooting every time to a pop song playing in the background is very Groundhog Day.
Because he gets to finish the day and then he wakes up the next morning with the radio playing, like that's the alarm. Okay. And that radio is always telling the exact same news, and so he has to get up every morning to the same thing. But he doesn't have to die or anything like that. That's what I like.
In the movie, does he remember the previous life?
Yeah, he does.
He's the only person who does, right? And he's also going through the same things. And Edge of Tomorrow, which is an amazing film, is based on a graphic novel, but Tom Cruise is this coward. Like that's got another great theme, which is like he's a coward, and it's basically the cowards die 1,000 deaths, which is essentially what the entire theme of the movie is. Is like he learns to become like a braver human by literally
thanks to
dying.
Badass Emily Blunt.
Yeah, badass Emily Blunt, and like he dies every single time in this war that they're fighting against this alien species, and it's because of something alien that he gets to kind of keep resetting the day for himself. And it's more of an action movie. There's a good story also in there.
But unlike Groundhog Day, I'll say that they do address the morality bit in this show also.
Exactly.
But I like how they rule it out also. Like it's like especially her character is like, screw this.
She does rule it out in the sense that she says it's not like a purgatory thing, but I feel like it is a moral show at the end of the day.
It is a moral show.
It's about how people have to be good to each other.
Yeah, what I like about it is that, is that because we've been bad people and they try and reflect and see whether they have, it's a very selfish thought initially. It's like, what have I done in my own life? When they realize that it's really not about them, it's about other people, which is good. Groundhog Day is kind of like, Groundhog Day is about him and the fact that he's not been the best kind of human he could have been.
Yeah.
Edge of Tomorrow is about like cowardice and like, stepping up and doing your bit. And this thing, which is even like darker, it's just like it's kind of about trauma, but it's also about addressing your own trauma by helping others. And it's like, it's cool. And there's a lot of elements of it, where she goes and steals, she goes and protects that Horace's shoes from, being taken away. She does little things in the middle, but
again,
until she
Groundhog Day, like where also he has to save a homeless man from dying.
A homeless man, exactly.
I'm not sure I exactly have a problem with this thing in particular, but when she finds out this other guy in the lift is also facing the same situation as her, and then for several lives after that, they do not stick together. Like none of them are none of them are like, let's figure this out, let's just stay together and see what happens.
It again speaks to what they do, right? Like with Alan Zaveri, when we first meet him, he like literally says right out to her, I like it. I like the loops, because he had a terrible night basically where his like long-term relationship ended, and he's now repeatedly trying to relive it but fix it by making sure everything is just so. So he doesn't want the chaos of Nadia's life coming into his.
No, but there's also some good poetry there where he says, like, by the end he does say, he's like, you're reliving your birthday every night, and I have to relive the worst night
day
of my life, which is great. Like I found that to be quite sweet. Like, and I also just like that halfway through the show, now he started showing up at the party every time he dies. Like, they just both show up. He's like, how did you die? How did you die? And it's just like,
they just like catch back up.
Yeah, and now suddenly he's in the party. Like, every time like she starts, he's just there. I also like found that quite funny. And there's some good linking also between the characters, which is something that I liked.
Yeah.
There's a nice, like, there are many like sub stories between her ex, this guy who's had this daughter, and he left his wife to kind of be with her, but then she kind of rejected that, and she's been trying to meet this daughter for such a long time and tell her the story of Emily of New Moon. Which is quite cool. I thought that was also a really nice, sweet story, even though it kind of goes to a really dark place as well. But yeah, it's good. I like that subplot as well. The gingerbread man is also
such an asshole.
He's
that guy
great
is.
Jack Nicholson type character, by the way. It just reminded me so much of Jack Nicholson. But what I liked about it is that there's so many times that Alan approaches this guy who's the guy that his girlfriend has been cheating on, and each time is different. Sometimes it's like an aggressive, abrasive thing, and it kind of reminded me of like sometimes when I know some people have wronged me, and like, I genuinely like don't like somebody for something that they did. I keep thinking in my own mind how many times or how many different ways I would react to a situation, and he gets to kind of do all of them, like play out all of those things, like where he gets to kind of be aggressive and hit him, or sometimes he just goes like, yo, I know I'm the guy whose girlfriend you're sleeping with, and and his reaction is just like, I'm sorry, man. It's just like, I'm not, he's just like, I'm the
your
whole...
girlfriend's not happy.
Yeah, girlfriend's not happy. I'm just the hole where the choice should be, which is
he says,
brilliant.
why would she choose you? And he says,
like,
I'm not a choice. Her only choice is not you.
Yeah, which is...
And I'm the hole where the choice should be, which is a great line.
Brilliant thoughts.
Well, he's a professor of literature.
It's true, yeah. Man, amazing. Like, such good writing in this show. Like, and it very, like very subtle. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a line that you're going to remember. It's just like, well
I think
written.
even I love that the theme is also basically this nuance. So it's not morality, like you were saying, Janam, I think in the traditional sense of like good and evil. Like, it's not like you guys are murderers, what terrible people. But it does something that I think another show on TV right now really does impeccably, is The Good Place, which have either of you guys been watching it?
Yes.
I've started watching it. I'm on the
It's
first
amazing.
season, so,
Won't spoil much for you, but also a show that deals with the idea of what does it mean to be a good person, because it talks about these people who are, I mean, ostensibly they're fine, but just the idea of like, it's not enough. You need to connect with other people. You need to be a good person who goes beyond flaws like, you're too self-centered, or you could just be holding on to stuff that you shouldn't be holding on to. So it's a nuanced new morality that the show addresses.
I like that. No, and it's also like a generational thing, man. Like, I feel like it was a lot simpler back then. Like, right now in this world, like, you can't... What can you say about Nadia's character? Like, can you outright just say, "Oh, is she a good person?" No, I mean, like,
at the start of this, she's not.
As in, like, you would say that,
she's a dick.
She's not.
Sometimes.
I mean, she's a dick sometimes. She's not a perfect person, and but the good idea, and this is something that even in my own life or whatever, like, I toy with, which is that, just because you do bad things, it doesn't make you a bad person. And I think like that kind of governs a lot of these characters in this show, in these kinds of shows at least, where, you have not done the greatest things or the things that you can be like most proud of, but it doesn't have to define your entire, like the rest of your existence.
Yes. I
Also,
think
most times good and bad is relative, like time.
So what I think this show means when it says good and bad, at least, is that it's about self-actualization or being true to yourself. Like the assholes in the show, like the professor,
Like
the gingerbread man, who's a complete dick to every single person he encounters.
Yeah.
But that's his true self, I suppose.
Yeah,
so it's fine. As opposed
He's
to...
not being dishonest to who he is. Yeah,
it's who he is.
true.
And that's in sharp contrast to Nadia and Alan, who both are basically hiding from what they should be.
Yeah.
Nadia because of her trauma, and Alan because he's scared, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, you need to find what your purpose is, essentially, I think is what they're trying to say.
Yeah, and then if you don't reflect well on somebody else, that's their problem. It's like, that's just the way it is.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of nuance. Okay, let's take a break. We'll come back and discuss more of these heavy themes. But tell me your favorite jokes.
Oh God.
Like my favorite moment, which I really want to call out, is when my man Varis Ahluwalia pops up out of nowhere as
the shopkeeper, the store
her
owner.
drug dealer. Hey, what dog? What dog?
Oh.
Her drug dealer, who she goes to because at first she suspects that she's stuck in a time loop because she smoked a joint.
The
that's
one
laced
at the
with-
bar, the guy at the empty bar, right?
Yeah.
Correct. You're right.
Yes,
Yes.
he's a...
Oh yeah. That was.
He's a bar owner who also deals drugs on the side. And I loved seeing him like this because he's usually like, he plays these very...
What else have you seen him in?
He's been in a lot of in pretty much all the Wes Anderson movies from from The Life Aquatic onwards.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I think. I know who you're
He's the
talking
guy
about,
who like keeps shutting down the brothers' shenanigans on the Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah.
A really cool guy. He's also like a really respected designer, I believe, and he acts in like these cool movies. But he's hilarious in this, in like 3 lines. But he feels like such a lived-in character. Like when she asks him, like, "Hey, what dog? Come on. Who likes drugs more than me?" He's like, "More than you? No one." And she's like, "Who likes orgies more than you?" He's like, "This guy loves orgies." It's hilarious.
I think. I really loved. I love Horace the homo, and he's just like
Horace? I thought he was called Hoss.
Oh, horse or
Horse.
Yeah, he calls himself
okay,
Horse.
Okay. Oh, that's why you guys. Okay, I couldn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I love that guy because he just looks at. He's like, "I want to cut your hair." Yeah, I just found that guy like just weird.
Which she
and
does have
awesome.
this very Merida-like hair, which is arresting.
A cross between what?
She calls herself a
between-
cross between Andrew Dice Clay
Andrew Dice Clay and the character
and
from
the
Brave.
girl
yeah.
from Brave. And what I love is that Andrew Dice Clay, again, a very like brash New Yorkie type, so it makes perfect sense. Yeah. And then she says, "I'm sure that's going to become problematic
later on." Yeah, which is so good. That is hilarious.
The Dice Man does feel like he's constantly on the verge of being problematic. All right,
I
let's take
think
a
one
break.
of my favorite. Wait, before we take a break, one of my favorite parts was when she's about to hook up with her boyfriend, not the guy from, not the Beatrice's
Jack.
guy.
Her
Jack.
ex.
Yeah,
Yeah,
her
her
ex.
ex.
When she's about to
John.
hook up with him.
John. Well, same thing.
At her apartment, and something happens and she just leaves, and she leaves her own apartment and her ex to hook up with, not hook up, but just to spend the night with a homeless guy.
Yeah.
And that was...
He's just like, "Wait, you're leaving? This is your apartment."
Yeah, I think
love
that was
great.
quite...
All right, we'll take a quick break and be back.
Every week comes a show where 3 people come together to tell you about stuff they like. A movie, a TV show, a book, and other stuff. Tune in every Monday on the IVM Podcast app to IVM Likes. Batman approves this message. Thank you, Batman.
And we're back. So yes, we're discussing like fairly heavy themes, but what I really liked was how this, let's take a step away from those heavy themes for a second because they're very heavy and talk about how the device plays out, which I really liked. It takes elements from so many genres. Like there are sections where she starts getting haunted by visions of herself as a young girl.
Yeah.
That are straight like horror movie.
That's,
really.
yeah, very shining, very Kubrick.
Very shining. Like she starts throwing up blood
Yeah,
suddenly
yeah.
sometimes. Very surreal moments
Yeah.
there. like other like really neat surreal touches, I thought that kind of unfold really slowly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you catch them before her, sometimes you catch them when they happen. Is like the fact that every time she reboots, everything seems normal.
Yeah,
but all the fruit is rotting
Yeah,
suddenly.
yeah. Which is
People start
disappearing.
disappearing.
Yeah, it was a little creepy.
Yeah.
Especially there's the last scene, which when she finally enters the party and it's only like Sweet Birthday Baby,
Maxine, yeah.
Maxine, she's
Yeah.
just like
just dancing by herself.
She's like, I am the
Surreal.
party. And
That felt like something out of a David Lynch.
Yeah.
Like it felt very Twin Peaksy.
Yeah, but it also, I mean, it did have this. I mean, that house is so weird.
It's so creepy,
Yeah,
right?
the gun
Without the
little-
people, it looks even more weird because when
Yeah.
the people are there, you don't realize it's so empty. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Also, something to be said for the fact that she keeps being reborn in a vaginal bathroom.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
know,
the
that's-
house look different with the people not in it?
I mean,
It looks a lot more scary.
I think
for sure.
they've also
No, but-
they light it differently also when they.
the structure of the house looks very.
Yeah, like the fact that the handle is a gun and
Yeah.
that like
The
vagina
door
crystal
is-
Yeah, it's
are
great.
all
Love it.
varying.
But,
I think in the last scene, the door also disappears. There's no door in one
Correct.
of the.
Yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
and there are no mirrors also because this whole thing of mirrors with her mother and all. Man, that was for me. That
creepy.
was like the creepiest thing. That her mother's like this slightly like deranged kind of person, and
Yeah.
like she just has to watch it unfold. Oh god,
You'd call
that's
her
tough.
crazy, except you don't use the word crazy in this house.
Yeah, you don't. Oh man.
Yeah, really surreal.
Okay, I just want to cut to the ending, and this is a bit of a spoiler. I mean, like, so the ending is basically where they by the penultimate episode they do fix. So to speak,
The
all the
bug,
problems.
as
Yeah,
she calls
they
it.
figure it out. They're just like, okay, cool, we gotta help each other, and we gotta, we've basically got to save each other's lives, essentially,
Yes.
right? So they figure that out, and then they are rebooted one last time, and to do the final deed, which is like kind of help each other from
Yeah.
their first meeting, which is when they ignored each other's kind of the universe's cry for help, at least
Yeah.
for these two characters. And what I loved about it is that they're both in like alternate timelines, which I thought was brilliant. I thought it was a
they
good way
suddenly
to
land up in parallel timelines where they realize they don't recognize like
yeah, they basically realize that they've come to a place where they are back in the first cycle, which is interesting because they don't have each other's hands to hold to kind of do the job because they are the problem to fix.
Yeah.
I found that really, really ingenious, and I thought it was a good way to kind of close the loop, so to speak, because like they both. I mean, like, there was no smart way of doing it. I didn't know how they were going to kind of close it out.
Yeah.
And then when they did this, I was like, okay, cool. That's
In a
something
really
new. That's
good
something
way.
new I've not seen in this type of device.
Also,
yeah.
it's very reflective of just human relationships in general, where one person is the one who needs more attention or more. One person is clearly oblivious of what's happening, and the other person has to step up and take
Yeah,
that
and
role.
take
you're
that
just
role.
plugging
Yeah.
your dating podcast now, Janam.
Yes, it's dating is garbage. Episodes out every Thursday.
Nicely done.
Wow.
Okay,
Just did
cool.
not see that coming
I also
at
like
all.
that scene where she's eating chips. Follow the chip review on Instagram.
Yeah. I love the
Cat?
science fiction part. Oh, no, wait. This
Oh.
is the same podcast.
If we're all plugging stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, do listen to Janam's new podcast.
It's
and-
also Abbas and Surbiya with guests.
Yeah, but
Correct.
you're the one who's here right now. That's
Yes.
what we meant.
Revealing a bit too much information, but yeah.
What? Why?
On dating is garbage, not here.
Ooh, suspenseful.
Yes, check
Okay.
it out.
Well,
Oh.
yeah, even I haven't checked it out yet. We'll all check
Oh,
it
I
out.
haven't. Yeah, I haven't.
But yes, to come back to the fact that yes, it is reflective of how relationships work. I also really love that other than the fact that they do hook up once, it's not about them being a romantic pair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
still
that
not
was-
attracted to each other in that crazy level.
It's
Despite of them having such a strong connection,
Yeah.
they don't.
They have great chemistry in the
Yeah.
show. That's good. No, what I like is that even though they do have sex, it's not even. It's almost like because it's kind of inevitable.
It's them just
but it's
working
like
out
working it out.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's good. Like
they're dealing with issues. They're
Yeah,
like, I
it's
mean,
funny.
he's role playing his girlfriend and she's role playing the guy she's cheating on him with.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's such a funny sex scene. To be honest,
and
I
it
guess.
has it has some consequences,
Yeah.
sure, but it's not what matters
Yeah.
really in their relationship.
Yeah.
So at the end, it's sort of ambiguous, I suppose, but basically there's this sudden procession led by the homeless guy
Yeah.
who's now like.
I didn't get that. What was the procession supposed? Was it indicated earlier in the show?
Well, there were
that-
skeletons and stuff, so it felt like a Day of the Dead kind of situation to
like
me.
a remembrance thing.
Kind of, where
Yeah.
they're kind of going like life is triumph, and she like very like powerfully grabs this torch from someone, and they both start marching, and suddenly the split screen, which signifies these two parallel timelines that they're in, merges.
Yeah, very cool.
So I think they find each other, and
I mean, like they have found versions of each other that they deal with. Like, I mean, I like that.
Oh, I thought those versions erased, and the two versions who had knowledge of each other came back together in the same timeline.
Oh no, I didn't see that. I mean, like they're obviously in both their separate timelines. At least for me, that's what I felt. But they have created the bond that they needed to have to begin with. Like not like the way that they know each other through this show is because they have knowledge of these previous lives and these iterations of the loop, which is really not what real life is like. But what they end up with is something more realistic.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it, right? So let's iron this out, because in this last loop, basically, Nadia is aware of what is going to happen to Alex, but her version of Alex is not.
Yeah.
And ditto in Alex's timeline.
Which is cool.
Which is great. Now, to signify that they're different, Nadia has a different shirt now. She wears like a pirate shirt.
Yeah.
And Alex is wearing a scarf. And scarf Alex is trying to save Nadia.
Yeah.
And pirate shirt Nadia is trying to save Alex.
Yeah.
Now, in the last split screen, while they're separate,
when
they're
the same
merged...
clothes?
Yeah, so up till that point, shirt Nadia is dealing with scarfless Alex, and vice versa.
Correct.
But in the last merged split screen, they're both wearing different clothes.
Yeah.
So basically, those two different versions have come together. Now the question is, does the show mean that literally or metaphorically?
I think metaphorically for sure. My other thought on this is that. If you take one person's perspective, and Natasha Lyonne has gone on record to say that this has actually happened to me in real life. She's like, in a sense that I felt like I was just reliving like moments or these few things, and I couldn't solve a crisis in my life, a crisis in my life or whatever it is. And to anybody who says anything like that to you, it's always going to be a singular experience, right? It can't be a shared thing. I always look at it that, if this was a real life scenario, right, and she did go through all of this, and then she ends up with this guy she saved, no matter how much she tries to convince him, no one will understand what she's going through. It's like a very personal, singular experience. And similarly for him in the alternate timeline, this is just my kind of opinion on it. The other really dark thing about it, which I like in this show, is that they only address this once and then they kind of move on, which is that, what is so sad is that what happens to the rest of the world after we die? Do they just kind of carry on? And like, how many times have people had to grieve for us? And I found that to be really weird. And
the fact
sad.
that they're just leaping between realities, so you're not rebooted in your universe, you're rebooted in the next universe.
One. Yeah,
was this the conversation she's having with the homeless man, where she's saying that?
No, I think she has.
This is what happens after Ruth shoots her by accident. And she looks at Ruth as she's dying, and she sees like the pain in Ruth's eyes because she just shot her. And when she wakes up, she realizes that pain is still real for Ruth. And now she's wondering whether in some universe there's that version of Ruth who can't live with herself anymore.
This is the infinite timeline kind of thought. Like if you think about it's the same thing for Edge of Tomorrow also. Like that every time he dies, like in that situation, like they've lost like a war, and she keeps saying, find me in another life or whatever it is.
Guys, she does.
Yeah.
You guys really have to watch The Good Place, because I feel like Good Place uses a completely different device.
Yeah. I've seen it. I've seen it up till season 3.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're caught up.
No, the season 4 is last, right?
Season 3 just finished.
Then I've seen 2.
Okay, but you see how it's like a very similar idea. Like I mean, I don't want to spoil it for you because you just started season 1. But essentially, the thrust of that show is also that people guts to be good to each other, and that's what's most important and gives your life meaning.
Right.
So Eleanor, who's Kristen Bell in the show, is also basically like, she's a version of Nadia. She's she's a Florida trash bag as opposed to like a New York dick. So she's a Florida trash bag who's fine. Like, she's an average normal person.
An average person.
But the fact is that she needs to be better to what she interacts with in her daily life. Or like a lot of it based on a lot of philosophy that like Mike Schur went and read up on. So very similar themes, I would say.
But it's good, man. I'm digging this kind of vibe. These shows are like super nuanced, but they're also funny and very easy to kind of digest in some ways. But they can still leave you. You don't have to be depressed and like, oh my god. Like BoJack ruins me, man. Every time I watch it, it's like crazy, like hard.
Another show that deals with the fact that a lot of life is about being good to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop being a selfish asshole.
Yeah,
basically.
even man, Rick and Morty also like it. I mean, that show has a completely different take on it. It's like why I love Rick and Morty is like they kind of talk about how like there are infinite lives, infinite universes. It doesn't matter what you do or what you say.
Yeah.
If you believe in like who you are in this one, that's all that matters. And it's like got a really weird universe kind of like
I think that Rick and Morty is a
version.
more no consequences at all kind
No,
of.
but that's the thing about it. There is like in the end, I mean, at least this is what I take away from that show is that Rick kind of puts on this thing that he doesn't care or he doesn't give a damn, but he's also still like one human in one timeline, and even though he can jump and see everything, and that's why he's like almost like omniscient, he still cares about his daughter and his family and stuff, and his grandson. Like I like that humanity, even though you may know all of the universe and it's like this really wild adventure and all that stuff. When it comes down to the crunch, you're like still like got the same problems as everybody
This
else.
is an interesting trend in current, especially comedic people like Rick and Morty's Dan Harmon, The Good Place's Mike Schur, all known for comedies. Natasha Lyonne is in like a couple of worlds, but she's also like a really funny person with a comedic bent of mind, right? So I think comedy is now addressing what it takes to be a better person.
Is a tragedy में comedy.
It's a trend,
comedy
it's a trend
tragedy.
I can get behind. But in another timeline, we continue this for like a long time because there's a lot to unpack.
And Janam is not that stringent about rules.
I read a tweet about this show saying. So like you mentioned in the previous episode, right, Amy Poehler, if she's associated with any show, I'll watch it.
I'm Amy I'm a smart girl. That's what I love.
Have you seen Broad City?
No, I've heard about it,
Yeah, so
also producer there.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
And
she's producing that?
Yeah, and it's on its last season.
So that's the only reason I got into the show.
perfect.
I didn't finish the show. I think I stopped at season 2. I should finish it. But so I saw this tweet that said how Russian Doll is like an outcome of women coming together and not being like sexually harassed at a workplace. This is what happens when women just writers
that is
are
awesome.
That's true.
Like freaking Amy, dude. Her book is one of the best things you'll ever
I
read.
still need to watch. I still need to read that. Yeah, but
Yes, please.
also Amy Poehler, best thing about the Oscars that happened.
Yeah, and along with
Olivia
Tina
Colman.
and Maya.
I mean, yeah, Tina and Maya, of course. But man, like I don't know what it is. I love Tina Fey. She's like my girl. Mm-hmm. But like Amy Poehler is like so cool. She's just like so sharp. It's crazy.
They're perfect for each other.
Yeah, they're really good.
All right. So, there's a lot to discuss there, which I suppose we'll keep coming back to because there's themes in the show that just affect our lives. But we'll save it for another universe.
It's also good that if we can, the good thing that about doing this kind of episode is that I'm sure these themes are in a lot of things that are going to come forth, like in other movies and series and stuff. We can reference this one.
I feel like these shows are making me a better person, man. Like I'm learning, which some people have pointed out, I'm learning how to be more human.
This is great.
From these episodes.
It's all it all ties up in the end.
Yep.
You guys can find us on all social media at GeekFruitHQ on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also write to us, contact geekfruit@gmail.com. Bullet points are appreciated. Thank you so much for mailing in, whoever does. And for those who don't, get started, I suppose. All right. Tell us what you thought about Russian Doll. See you, nerds.
माणसं गोलगप्प्यासारखी असतात. हाय हॅलो करताना वेगळी आणि बोलताना वेगळी आणि गप्पा मारताना वेगळी, मित्र झाली की वेगळी आणि शत्रू म्हणून वेगळी, थोडक्यात दिसणारी वेगळी आणि असणारी वेगळी, कधी आंबट, कधी गोड, कधी तिखट, तर कधी चमचमीत आणि कधी कधी हॉट अँड स्पायसी सुद्धा. आणि म्हणूनच गप्पा सॉरी गोल गप्पा विथ तृप्ती खामकर फक्त तुमच्यासाठी दर बुधवारी IVM पॉडकास्टच्या ऍपवर, वेबसाईटवर किंवा युट्यूब चॅनलवर सुद्धा ऐकू शकता. तुम्ही आमचा पॉडकास्ट वेगवेगळ्या पॉडकास्ट प्लॅटफॉर्मवरती ऐकू शकता. फक्त सर्च करा गोल गप्पा विथ तृप्ती खामकर आणि आमचा पॉडकास्ट ऐकत रहा.
Filter coffee is a fascinating beverage. You need to pick the right beans, blend them in the right proportion, roast them to perfection, and slow brew at the right temperature to get the perfect cup. Which is exactly like great conversations as well. You need to track down the most interesting minds, get them into their zone, and settle down for an unhurried, unscripted chat. And coffee for me is always best enjoyed with friends. I'm Karthik Nagarajan, and do share my table as I meet some of the most interesting people I know and sit them down for a strong cup of coffee and an even stronger conversation. Join me every Wednesday for a freshly brewed episode. This is not frappe. This is the Filter Coffee Podcast.